The Weimar Republic was doomed to become an authoritarian right-wing corporatist nationalist regime that would be prone to pursue a revanchist foreign policy. However, the rise to power of NSDAP and Adolf Hitler was not a foregone conclusion from the beginning. To some extent, his rise to power can be described as a fortunate coincidence, and one such condition was the Great Depression. With the onset of the Great Depression, German governments went into a regime of austerity, especially on social spending. They also raised taxes that affected mostly workers. All these measures would never have been approved by the Reichstag, much less the majority of the voters. So the chancellors who ruled in 1930 and 1933 relied on emergency presidential decrees. Hindenburg changed chancellors and ministers from behind the scenes depending on the situation. The Bundestag in such situation became no more than the barometer of public sentiment, which did not influence real policy. The feature of Brunig's and Pappen's cabinets was the lack of sufficient parliamentary support between 20 and 40% of all moderate right-wing parties and the Central Party. These cabinets ruled based on emergency presidential decrees bypassing parliament, and the difficult economic situation was a good justification for ruling under emergency conditions, ignoring many constitutional norms. Franz von Papen relied only on right-wing conservatives and national liberals in parliament, while Kurt von Schleicher, who followed him, relied on no one. Conservative revolutionists, in addition to constantly fighting each other, tried to build a German nation state with less than 10% support in parliament. By 1933, with the worsening economic crisis, which no one could solve, the conservative revolutionists ran out of strength and had to turn to a right wing party with more impressive public support. The NSDAP was successful in the early 30s in riding the protest wave at the expense of disappointed former conservatives and liberals, as well as attracting those who hadn't previously voted at all. Hitler successfully built a People's Party from 2.5% in 1928. The Nazis increased their fraction to 37% in July 1932. The masses of voters, workers, peasants, bourgeoisie, now voted for radicals, including the NSDAP. At the same time, the Republican Party were only losing support. Sheikhi realized that the authoritarian regime would not hold if it was openly opposed by most of the society. What was needed was some kind of broad coalition, which he decided to do at the end of 1932. By the end of the year, Papen had managed to negotiate with Hitler a coalition government in which the NSDAP leader would take over as chancellor, but would be restricted to Papen as vice chancellor. The isolated Schleicher tried to return to his plan, which he had rejected in early December, to move towards an open military dictatorship. However, the general was reminded of a staff simulation by the General Staff Officer Ott, which proved the impossibility of resisting the Reichswehr if all party paramilitary groups rose up. Therefore, the appointment of Hitler as a chancellor was not excessive. So, could the left wing parties have done anything? The Social Democrats ignored the Communists' call for a joint general strike in early 1933 because, firstly, they feared its failure because of 6 million unemployed. Who would want to strike over politics under threat of job loss? And secondly, they assumed that the Communists would convert the strike into an uprising, which would give Hitler's government the perfect legal excuse to destroy the entire labor movement in the country. Thus, the trade unions remained mere observers in the crisis rather than active participants in politics. Unemployment due to the general economic distress and the resulting social declassification contributed to the characteristic leveling of social class distinctions. It was not by chance that the NSDAP understood itself not as a party, but as a broad social and national movement. It acted as an anti-class party, as an anti-party in general, and was aimed primarily at the socially very differentiated protest potential of the population, which only increased as the crisis unfolded. As a result, in the winter and spring of 1933, the Nazis met no organized resistance to their terror and crushed the whole blooming complexity of Weimar politics without much trouble. Such an event could hardly have been imagined if it had not been for the serious economic crisis in Germany, which became the fuel and the main driving force for the radicals.